3, 2. It's Jed the Sloth, the MILF Hunter. How your mama now? And you're tuned into the PLAYBAW Podcast. Just what the world needs, another podcast.
PLAYBAW Podcast, episode 6. It's Jed the Sloth, the MILF Hunter. How your mama now? And you're tuned in to the PLAYBAW Podcast, episode 6. You're probably wondering where I'm at. I am in a spooky place. I am in a haunted house. I am at the Bass
Ghost Shop.
The Bass Ghost Shop at an undisclosed location somewhere in the WHITEDIRT open world. And I'm here with Matt and Liz.
Hey.
Hello.
Yeah. So, no, all of that was a lie. We're at Yeswecannibal. So I've shouted you guys out. My last episode, we interviewed a common performer here, and now we're here. So Yeswecannibal has been real good to the community, the artist community in Baton Rouge, and I love this place, man. But I'm gonna let them explain to you what is Yeswecannibal.
Well, we most often call it a place for new art and new thought.
Also, safe space for unsafe ideas. Non-transactional. What else do we call it?
I think that's good. We're going to try and be concise here because that's one of our new goals.
It's a funny story. One time we interviewed Simon Burrs, this incredible musician from Switzerland. And this is kind of a secret, but we're doing an interview with him about his experimental music performance. And as we were editing it, Liz and I literally timed how long we took on our questions for him. And it was 5 minutes to ask him
very embarrassing.
A single question, which is embarrassing. So we're going to try and keep it really concise. So we're also just kind of a gallery in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we have art shows that we host. We have musical performances. We got to know Jed through Soul Lab Sundays. We have other recurring musical performances. Sometimes there's lectures. Sometimes there's films. We've done some food events. So...
And the big other piece about it is that compared to maybe other gallery projects, because we really are ultimately a fine art gallery, we just try and really respond to our neighborhood and to our city. So when people come to us, our basic ethos is to say yes unless there's a good reason to say no. So pretty much, we do the things that we care about, that we curate here, and a lot of people come to us, and very often we just say, yes, you can do an event here. The only real caveat is you can't charge door. You can ask for donations happily, and we encourage that. But, we also do things like the food fridge and the food forest. We are involved in when local things come up, that are important politically. We really like just kind of using whatever platform we have to kind of like amplify that.
What is a food fridge and a food forest?
So a food forest, it's like a distinction from a community garden. And the idea is that we're growing food. We have a little side lot, and we're growing food, and anyone can come and pick it and take it. So a little bit different from a community garden in that typically those things are tended by a certain group of people, and the food is for that certain group of people. We try and, with volunteers, tend this little strip of food that's growing along our building, and everyone is welcome to come and take whatever they need.
We should shout out there's really good figs coming up soon.
Yeah.
They're almost ready, and they're delicious. So if you see this in the next couple of weeks.
My neighbor growing up had a fig tree.
Nice.
Yeah.
What kind of figs?
Oh, I don't know that.
I don't either.
Supposedly the original apple. That wasn't an apple.
Oh, like in the biblical sense?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of myself because that's a critique I have of myself on this podcast. Not letting the guests talk enough or chiming in or something like that. Then I decided not to drink any coffee before this. It's working out so far so good.
That's good.
That was good explanations. I knew about the fridge, but I didn't know about the forest. Tell them more about the fridge.
The fridge was right after Ida 2 years ago. it was just so obvious that it was necessary. And after COVID, I mean, there's just so much devastation and precarity for people that it was really obvious that it was necessary to do a food fridge. And so just with a small crew one weekend, the shed we have now for the fridge, which sits in our front lot, was all salvaged stormwood from fences. And it's held up really well for 2 years for being a fairly ragtag structure. We plan to rebuild it this month or next month. But a lot of people probably don't realize if you're here at Yeswecannibal all day, one weekday, you're going to see people dropping off food, taking food pretty much all day. You know, I sometimes forget because I won't be here. That thing gets so much use. It blows my mind. And it really tells you how much sort of desperation there is, you know, that can be kind of hidden at times.
And we're the hosts of this site, but this is a BR Community Fridge project. And there's another one at the Red Shoes, and I know they're working on getting more locations. So this is definitely a collaborative thing.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, anytime I'm here, I've seen
Yeah.
at least one or two people pull up
Yeah.
and put in or take out. And, you know, the events I've been around here, you definitely can see, you know, the community's like kids here
Oh, yeah.
and stuff. You know, it's a neat experience. It's definitely Baton Rouge, that's for sure.
Yeah. There's some kids who used to live on the block who moved about a year ago now, right?
Yeah.
There were like two kids right here on 16th. They were like 9, you know, and they came to, and they were at SolLab for sure. They were definitely at SolLab. But they came to every weird thing we did. Yeah. And one of them is on the wall now, Shalonda. There's a big photo of her out there that Cedric Dent Jr. took, which I love.
Who was an exhibiting artist,
yeah.
and he took the photo at his opening.
Great artist who showed here, and really talented guy. But those kids, they just saw the weirdest mix of stuff here. And to me, they're like an inspiration where I always think about them. And I'm like, you know, they're so young that by the time they're like 22, they're barely going to remember this place, but they're going to have this little impression of some weird-ass punk show they saw or some really weird conceptual art thing. And I find that really invigorating, you know?
No, I didn't think about that, but that's 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, yeah, it exposes you to something different.
I love it. I love this.
Yeah, well, I mean, and then they go out there and they see, you know, Oregon on the license plate. So how did that happen?
The what?
You're not from here, right?
No, yeah. I mean,
Carpetbaggers.
Matt's working on his PhD at LSU, and then Matt kind of brought us here, and now I work at LSU, and
where did you come from recently? Most recently?
DC. So we met in DC a little over five years ago, and Liz was about to go to Brazil to do a project there for a year, and so I moved here when we've known each other less than a year in the summer of 2019, and we opened up Yeswecannibal in March 2020. So we're in our 4th year.
A week before the shutdown.
Yeah, a week before COVID. So we did like one event, and then we were sort of stuck in the place trying to figure out what to do. But yeah, we were in DC, and in DC there's a spot called Rhizome, and Rhizome is it's in a house in Tacoma Park, which is kind of a streetcar suburb of DC, and they do, you know, it's an amazing fucking place. They do freaking place. They do, you know, experimental music stuff, and they do community events and
art and like
political stuff,
philosophy reading groups, you know, just a huge mix of stuff. And
they're a really big inspiration for us.
Yeah.
Shout out Andy Ball and Taylor Loeb, two of my buddies who live in DC.
Right.
Cool.
On. Yeah.
Yeah. Go to Rhizome.
Yeah. Check out Rhizome.
And
Check out Rhizome.
They charge, but they're very like equitable about what they do, and like it's a box up the door, and they're you know, they charge door, which we don't do. But
that was one of my favorite parts when I first found out. You introduced me to the term non-transactional, which I think is pretty neat.
I like
it
that.
lends a space for people who are here, want to be here.
Yes.
People that want to do artistic things here want to do artistic things here. It's not a venue,
Yes.
I'd say.
We're not a venue. I find it
not a
funny when
venue.
people say that. But one thing I really love, I think it's Liz came up with the phrase a long time ago, and it stuck with me, that one cool thing about operating the model we do is that, you know, OSHA. Do you know OSHA?
You mean like the people that make sure people don't kill
No,
them?
not that. OSHA, the artist, OSHA Blue Eye.
I was like, yeah, I know about OSHA.
Yeah, very different things. But he came to us, in like February 2022, and was like, I want to do an art show. And he wanted to do it like 10 months later on a specific day. And I was kind of like, who is this kid? Like, what's going on here? But he followed through with it, and he did a show October of last year, and I thought it was great. And it was really fun working with him. He had really cool ideas. And what I liked about that so much, and it came from Liz, was that there's something about young people in particular being able to authorize their own art as being important. That's what really I care about, is that we're not authorizing stuff, but someone being like, I think what I'm doing is important. I think that someone being able to do that is really powerful. And I think it makes the city a better place, frankly.
Yeah, and I mean, we've had other young people come to us wanting to do things, and then, they've subsequently gotten involved. They become part of other events we've done, and in that way they kind of build this unique community. So it's like this,
shout out to Stephanie.
This one point of engagement where they get the space to see their vision for the world happen, and that becomes a point of connection. And that was definitely what we hoped would happen by not charging.
Well, we were talking before we started the show about if you have that energy and desire to want to do things, I mean, usually the biggest hurdle is usually like money, or like having to learn how to do things yourself. And then whenever you get into booking shows, especially as like a musician, I'll just say from my own experience, or musical artist, the first thing you run into is venues,
right?
And just the struggles with that. So having a place that has sound, mics, and a location to basically do it yourself is essential. I mean, we're here right now doing this. That's just enough. There's a lot to be said about that.
I mean, I think that there's not a lot of free spaces in cities, right? I mean, maybe there's some cool public places. Maybe there's places like coffee shops historically where you pay a little bit of money and you can spend time there. But having places that are legitimately, just free, right? Like, to me, that's a really powerful. I mean, it's an experiment for us ultimately, and it will come to an end someday. But there's a way in which that's the fundamental conceit of everything we do, is what would happen if we made this free? And I find it interesting. One of the things that we run up against actually is people who really want more professionalization. So for instance, we have a it's a fairly small space in a lot of ways, and we have a good sound treatment, and we have our sound system, and it's pretty simple, but it definitely does the job. And I've noticed there are people who almost bristle at the idea that it could be sort of DIY to you can do your own sound. It's not rocket science to do sound in a place like this. And I've had a few interchanges with people who are kind of acting as though that should be a much more professional role. And I go up against it because it's, having grown up in punk rock, it seems so strange to me that people want to be more professionalized when they don't have to,
I mean, I think I grew up in Chicago, and Matt grew up in D.C. at the Discord Records time. And, when we opened the space and we're talking about it, I always talked about this experience, which was really important for me as a teenager. And it was this weirdo ex-hippie photographer guy named Fred Burkhart. And Chicago has these cool, 2-story homes where people have businesses on the bottom and they live on the top. And he had one of these, and he had a young daughter, and he would open up his house every other Sunday night, the ground floor, and kids could come do art stuff there. All my friends had their first exhibitions in his studio. My musician friends had their first performances there. My poet friends had their first readings there. And you could just go, and, it didn't cost anything, right? And it was so formative for us to have a space like that. And Matt talks about his experiences in the punk scene in DC and how they found venues to do shows in. And it really was not, it was not about money in any way. It was about, this place to try out something new, to show people what you had been doing.
And actually what's interesting about DC too is that when it did become about money, I mean, I was very young at the time, but like with bigger bands who really had a big draw, the money was all donated. I mean, it was bands, right? Fugazi is the big band everyone knows in DC. They would all the money they generated from almost all their shows there went to, you know, like the Whitman Walker Clinic, like the AIDS Clinic, and, you know, various kinds of like social justice things. So even when it was paying ticket price, it was still fundamentally going to something. I find that inspiring also.
Fugazi reference on my last episode.
Nice. By Jack?
By me,
Nice.
too, Jack. But, yeah,
Makes
but
sense.
go check out episode 5 on YouTube right now.
And check out
For,
Jack.
yeah, for me, growing in Baton Rouge, that place was a place called Insomniacs.
Yeah, we've heard about that place.
Yeah, it was above a building in the Broadmoor Theater area, which is no longer there, which is wild. But yeah, and that's what it was. Went there high school, junior, senior year. I remember the first time we pulled up, me and my brother, and there's just like a car on fire. you know, your first time like being exposed to the punk
Danger.
environment and stuff.
Yeah.
And that, just the free art environment,
It's funny
it
'cause
was very pivotal, I think.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you need to see people living creative lives in order to think that it's possible to live your own creative life.
So you got to see like, you came up in the punk scene in DC.
Yeah.
And you got to see Fugazi like
Many times.
come up.
Yeah, they're a great band. I mean, they're one of those things that when you grow up in DC, every kid there goes, to see when they play. I mean, not even the punk kids. Like, everyone. It's such a big event and everything. But yeah, all that stuff is really formative and important to me.
Yeah, we
It's
wouldn't
also-
have DC Go-Go without that.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's the other way around, though. I like that you reference it because no one talks about Go-Go.
Shout out DC Go-Go, man.
Indeed.
You
Make the
said we were
White
talking
House
about I went to
laugh.
Tulane. That's how I know about DC.
Really?
Go-Go. A lot of DC kids, yeah.
It's funny because Go-Go and Bounce, like, there's a real influence there.
It's
This is a
similar,
direct
yeah,
line.
for sure. I mean, if you go YouTube DC Go-Go and you go YouTube like Bounce, like the original videos that you'll find from like 1992 or something look exactly the same,
Yeah. I like Go-Go because it was scary as fuck. Like, I don't think it curse, but it was scary.
It's like very like Looney Tunesy to me.
Yeah, but also it was like, when I was a kid, you heard about like shootings at the Go-Go Club.
Oh,
It was all
okay.
quite racist, but at the same time, it did kind of give Go-Go this weird intrigue of being like, what's going on there? Like, this is
Yeah.
definitely something I don't know anything about. And it was always really interesting. But I also think it's funny. I love Go-Go, but some comedian did this bit that I saw recently about like, it's just one drum solo, which is kind of true. But the other thing we should mention is that, I think one of the things that we do that I think is unique is that, we have a very strong foot in like the art world. We have a really strong foot in the contemporary art world, and I think sometimes people in Baton Rouge, they see things like Future X Youth, Soul Lab, or other things happening here, and I think sometimes they don't know that like the artists we bring in, like Molly Shea, who's here right now, they're often like really pretty well-known artists.
Yeah, you're kind of the pipeline for that. It reminds me of Fade the Flow Sundays.
Yeah.
How Marcel P. Black was sort of the pipeline person for underground hip hop.
Yeah.
You are the same with art
That's good.
in that way,
And
where it'd be the same. It's like no one's really gonna know who they are, and you're
Right.
exposing. You're doing that duty, that diligence of exposing them to that, and it's like you just never know what
We should
that's
actually-
gonna do.
We should shout out that he was kind of a big inspiration too. We did an interview with him 3 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, that's how I first found out about.
Yeah. But he blew me away. I mean, it was like him and Mike in here, no one else because it was COVID, and it was like I got chills. I mean, it was a serious show. And,
It's
that's
going to
cool.
be with.
Yeah, he was intense, man. He was good.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's how we met, Mike.
Yeah?
And that's
Yeah,
how
that's what I
this-
figured.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's a powerhouse, Marcel. I wish we got to know more, but
Very, y'all are of the same credence, I guess. It's very DIY underground. Stand for a lot of the same things.
That's a compliment.
yeah, it is. Yeah, seriously.
Sure, it's definitely that. But you bring up Mike, DJ Soul Lab. And that's how I spent a lot of time here. One Sunday out of every month, basically. The only ones where we didn't was because of it's government mandated.
He's spending tonight at the main source.
At Mansur's?
No, at the main source. The main source?
Oh.
I don't know.
What's the bar downtown? What's it called?
I thought he said Mansur's. I was like,
yeah, that'd be weird. I can see it.
Oh, that was a Mansur's reference in my song
The Blue
Playball.
Bar on Main?
The guy who runs Firehouse.
The main lobby.
He's a cigar thing on the rooftop or something. I don't know.
Huh. Cool.
That sounds very
Yeah.
like they got cigars and like bourbon. He's there. Scotch, brandy. He's there. But for those of you who don't know, shout out DJ SLOTH. He's a barber. He runs his own barber shop. I shouted out
Uppercuts.
why am I blanking?
Uppercuts.
SLOTH's the event I just
Fade the Flow.
Fade the Flow Sundays. Dang. Sorry, Marcel. He DJ'd there, and it was a monthly event. So when Marcel left and went to Tulsa, he just sort of kind of continued it on with his own version of it, SLOTH Sundays. And I was the cinematographer for that, I guess. So I would film and drop monthly videos, and that's how I got to spend a lot of the time here.
And now he's got the library thing, which is huge.
Yeah,
yearly
now
library.
he does the shows at the East Baton Rouge Library. Tell us about that.
That was, I don't remember. I remember Mary Stein.
We were going out of town. We went out of town.
No, but I remember Mike and I met with Mary from the library, and I don't remember if it was her idea or his or ours, but it was a natural fit. I'm so stoked it happened. We missed it last year because we were in Italy making a movie, and then this year it kept getting postponed. But he does this giant hip hop festival at the library. He had all his usual crew of MCs, but then also like vendors and artists and stuff, and it looked amazing. We didn't make it, but shout out to Mary Stein from the library. People don't know her. She's like the secret engine of Baton Rouge. She makes so much stuff happen and supports stuff, and she supported us. I love her.
Yeah, and if you are doing anything creative at the East Baton Rouge Libraries, there's recording studios, there's...
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's a nice recording studio. And there's
printing.
they'll train you on podcasting stuff, and then they've got stuff to make your own t-shirts, so you can
I
kind
didn't
of...
know any of this.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. I don't know. They don't get the word out very well, but it's kind of amazing.
That was one of her we understand it as one of her big projects. I'm sure that was a huge collaborative thing, but... Yeah.
She just also knows a lot about Baton Rouge history, a lot.
That's, now that I work where I work, and I guess I've unhashed. I've always kind of had an interest in that, but I've just unhashed, unlocked something within me I want. Just so exciting. There is history, and maybe I'll have her on the pod one day.
Oh, yeah. That'd be great.
She'd be interesting, for sure.
Very interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. But how'd you end up in D.C.?
Well, I'm from D.C., so I was living in England, where I started the PhD I'm finishing now, and I went through
PhD in what?
Geography and anthropology, more or less. And I went through a really bad divorce, and I had a young son with my ex-wife, and so I had to come back to the States. My mom lived in D.C. at the time and had a spare rental unit, so my son and I landed there, and we lived there for 2 years. And Liz, you've been living there for, a year and a half?
I guess I should say, how did you end up in D.C.?
Well, I did a grad program in Buffalo, New York, and after I did the grad program, I kind of found all these free, more or less, or traded ways to live and survive, because I had a couple residencies lined up that were out of the country, and I wanted to save my money for the incidentals that go with the residencies, like the plane tickets and stuff. Yeah. And so in between those kind of weird things, I traded work for a residency in upstate New York, and they let me live on the land for free, and one of their defunct Winnebago style things from the 70s. And I did stuff like that. And in between that kind of stuff. My parents had also ended up in D.C., even though I grew up in Chicago and lived there most of my life, or young life. And I went down there and I'm an artist. I met these kind of interesting artists. So then I started trying to figure out how to stay. And I met Matt during that time.
How'd you guys first meet?
Well, this is a good lead-in to the Cannibal Singles Cup. We actually literally met
We're getting there.
Because we've never been asked. We actually literally met through OKcupid.
Repeat that.
OKcupid. The
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm familiar as a MILF hunter.
Yeah. No, of course, right.
But we're still of that generation where, like, I remember when people started dating online and, like, the first friends to really start online dating, it was like, oh, that's kind of weird, you know?
Right.
And
well, I don't think it's that. I don't think it's weird. I don't have any
now
issue with
everyone
that.
meets that
No, but
way,
I think it's
but-
amazing given how weird what we've created and what our interests are. The odds of meeting each other that way seem really strange.
Yeah.
Yeah. You figured you would have met like at a show or something.
Yeah.
We probably would have, though, if we'd crossed paths.
Well, I've
We
heard that
didn't,
before. I literally know people who are married now who said the same thing. It's like, oh, we would have eventually met anyway.
We would have, for sure, if we'd been in D.C. long enough, right?
Maybe.
Probably.
Yeah.
It was just technology, assisting that process.
Well, I will say, we were talking about, right before we started, we were talking a little bit about algorithms and the kind of good and bad side of them. And I will say that OKcupid algorithm is pretty terrifying. It's really smart. It doesn't tell if you're going to actually...
It's going to shit nowadays,
Is it?
which you probably wouldn't know.
Yeah.
But it is going to shit. They all have.
Really? It's impressive, though. It was at the time for being able to kind of figure out the basic contours of like a person you would kind of get along with.
Yeah.
So I was impressed.
I mean, I will say about Yeswecannibal, this is, in a lot of ways, this is our love story. Like,
Absolutely.
I would not have done something like this without Matt. And I think I can say for you that you would not have done something like this without.
And I like that there are two, well, I won't say who they are, but there are some couples that have formed, like, as a result of being here. And
Oh, okay. So you're almost like your own OKcupid.
exactly, yeah.
This
Cannibal
is
Cupid.
this place has so many different functions.
It's true. And what's funny is people always lock into one thing we do, and they're like, "Oh, I get what you're doing," and it's often really wrong. Like there was some like show here last spring, kind of like rock kids, and there was a lady who was like, I don't know, 45-ish, and she was quite drunk. She's like the mom of one of the people playing, and she's like, "Oh yeah."
You should have called me up.
No, it's exactly. You were occupied. But she was basically saying, "Oh, I know what this is. Like, I worked at like a DIY punk house in like Tallahassee in the '90s," and it was kind of like, I understand why you think that, but that's not what this is, kind of,
I mean, I think we have pretty diverse interests, and we try and make a connect. Things that happen here, they're things that we think are important, right? Or things that we think should be supported from the young people who think things are important. So there's a lot of different threads that end up coming together.
What I like about it is like you were talking about this too. Is like this place is not designed for artists that need their hand held.
No.
This place is designed for artists that like have a vision and want to execute something, and it's just a matter of how creative you can be in exeking it. I mean, I've come at you with so many ideas, and you've never told me no.
Very rarely.
I've wanted to do actually the one thing I've never actually do is a show. Music show.
You got to do a show.
Come on.
Yeah.
I've said, hey, can we fit a ring in there? A wrestling ring? Can we fit a ring out back? Can we fit a wrestling ring in the door, the space next door? Can we have chairs and ladders? Can we hit people in the head with chairs? Can we burn fires? Can we do a podcast? Just like all sorts of things. And you're always like, let me see. Maybe, yeah.
We did have a band in here who lit their instruments and other things on fire in here, and I
In the
almost
middle
had
of a burn ban.
No,
Was it?
before.
This
Oh,
before
before
the
the
burn
burn
ban,
ban. We didn't burn anything here during the
But
burn ban.
the funny thing about that is like, one, it's a band in Daikaiju. They've been doing that for years, so they know what they're doing. But
Yeah, it was
also-
totally safe, but it was also terrifying because
Yeah,
the
which is cool,
ceilings here
though.
are 8 feet.
No, but they knew what they were doing. They'd obviously done it before in a place like
Yeah.
this. But that was cool. Like, and I like it because on some level, we live in this time where like anything that's at all sort of dangerous, like people just bug out. Whereas it's like, I didn't feel a risk when they did that.
That's one thing I like about you is like we talked about that. It's like there's the danger, the safety kind of deal. Like, because you can identify, both of you can identify real well with people, and especially like the younger generation that operates in a certain way, social norms, and we were talking about like can't really communicate that well interpersonally. So that just went off in my head when you said that's like, people aren't really privy, they're not really about the dangerous stuff, and it's like,
well, they also, when you say hand holding, even outside of art or doing an art show, I'm struck that there are some young people that I meet who you do have a feeling of like wanting, some younger people, not all, who really want to be kind of handheld in this way, even just about social stuff or about negotiating difference. Yeah. And I find that really strange. You know, like you'd expect the younger people are sloppier and more chaotic. And actually what I notice is that a lot of them are really tightly controlled, you know, and don't take a lot of risk, which is, not all.
This place is literally risk.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was, I don't know, we're two people who have made choices that have meant that we've had to make our own way, and that is an alternative. You don't have to do what you're told, so that's been important for us.
I mean, even like the basic thing of like, I don't understand why to this day kids are not more supported if they're like, they just want to be artists. Like, what's wrong? Like, you should, I mean, yeah, it's financially challenging, but so is any degree you're going to get or any life path you're going to carve out in this time is going to be difficult. And I just want more kids, I want more artists in the world, and I want more kids to be like, that's a serious thing I can do. I can become an artist, and like, I'll figure out how to make a life out of it. And maybe that's risky, but that's a very worthy risk to take, if you're really driven to do it. So yeah, I feel like being authorized again to be like, you can do kind of whatever you want with your life, even like based on whatever your means are. You have a lot of power to invent your life as you want it to be, like I want people to see that,
You give good insight. That's kind of, you explained it exactly what I was trying to explain. Like, there's a balance between, things can happen to you that are out of your control. And like, yes, sure, everyone, you can have like traumatic things happen to you, and everyone should understand and respect that. But at the end of the day, it's like you're still accountable for your own actions and what you do, sort of thing. And I feel like you have a very logical and like caring, compassionate way of thinking about that. So it's like, like you said, there's young artists that are like controlled and this and that. And why do you think that is?
I mean, I'm an educator. I teach at LSU. I see a lot of young people, especially in their like formative years, right? And they rightfully have a lot of things to be pissed off about. They have a lot of things to be angry at, but so few of them seem to actually understand the matrix of things that are influencing their lives and the kind of agency that they can have, and they can have agency.
But I didn't have that at that age either.
No, of course not. But I think things were freer.
I was thinking about that yesterday or earlier today. It's like, oh, every generation was like that at this age, but it's like not every generation was going through didn't have the same world at that age. So now it's like whenever you were maybe that age, this wasn't, the center of everything. Whenever I was their age, it existed, but it wasn't yet the center of everything, and that affects everything.
But also they face, there's all this, now when you, at a lot of universities, you sign a contract about what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, right? And like, the contract's not binding in any way.
Yeah.
But it's just the act of doing it. It's another like pressure point on young people to sort of, to follow somebody else's mandate. I think young people have a lot more of that than you and I had, for sure. I mean, that stuff was not, you didn't do good in school. You didn't do good in school, like there wasn't all of these things pointed at you to sort of make you feel this like shame or pressure.
You just can't. You can't make a mistake at their age.
Yeah, they feel that way.
You can't. It follows you home. You can't log off. And like grown ass adults are like, motherfucker, like. It's like, dude, calm down.
Yeah. So I totally get it, but
people
I also
my
see
age,
it crippling
and I'm like,
them.
I was like, dude, I've seen people my age I went to high school with. I'm like, you have no room to talk. Like, this is not a camera wasn't pointed at you.
I mean, I think it.
You don't remember that time?
There's something kind of deeper to that too. Deeper also to that, which is that, if I was 19 right now, I'd be pretty terrified, about obviously just getting something wrong and saying the wrong thing, acting like an idiot, offending someone. I'd be really afraid of how they could follow me. But I think it bothers me because, I think something that Liz and I talk about a lot, directly and indirectly both, is that almost everyone is redeemable. Not everyone, but almost everyone is redeemable in the end, in my view. And there's something so opposed to that in this sort of message of people make a misstep, not a wild misstep, but they sort of do something inappropriate or they screw something up and it really does follow them. I don't really think that doesn't really match up with what human existence is like.
The public is far more forgiving than we'd like to believe.
Yeah, in some ways, I agree.
I don't want to talk too much about this because it's not a real thing set in stone yet. It's just something I'm working on at my job. I'm doing an investigative show.
Cool. And
the lead investigator at my job, he said, I asked him, why do people lie? Why do they lie right to your face? They know you have the answer. You're asking them questions. Why do you think they lie to your face? And he said, most people don't want to face the public, what they might think about them. And he says, on the contrary, what they found in 15 years of doing it is that the public is usually forgiving if you're truthful for it and you admit wrongdoing and then hold yourself accountable. I think that's the big part of it, is the accountability part.
Right.
So if you're willing to hold your own self accountable, like that's something Jack said last week. He said, take this moment right here to, if you've done something bad, like in your past, you can forgive yourself right now.
Yeah. Well, the irony too is that here we are being like, oh, young people in this abstract way, but Jack's quite young, and he's the one who really inspires me, just for going forward with his vision. And, kind of really manifesting this thing that he wants to make. He's creating a world that he wants to happen.
Yeah.
And he's pretty humble about it, given everything.
I mean, right now, we're these grown people having a podcast. We're just talking about young people. It's like, they're just constantly analyze.
Well, we also talk about this, though, which is it's a very simple example. Keeping track of pronouns, for instance, for me, doesn't come naturally because it wasn't there when I was in a formative part of my youth or something. And, it can feel really awkward and I'll get it wrong and stuff. But, in the end, it's sort of humorous because it's you leave it up to the kids to decide about this stuff. You always want to follow the kids. They're the ones who are leading the way and they kind of get the final determination of kind of how the world should be and sort of setting the rules. We should follow younger people for all that we're kind of talking about them right now.
Yeah, I think, but the ability to distinguish when someone's just genuinely doesn't know or is still in the process of learning, it's that's how society's always worked. It's a both sides work together thing. So it's if one side doesn't know, isn't that educated. I've been guilty of it in my past. Oh, well, I used to say this all the time. You know what you want to know, and that's very obtuse. Now I can sit here and say that's kind of obtuse. Some people just simply don't know, haven't learned things yet. I just think it's the ability to say, "Oh, I didn't know that," and I hear that a lot. It's nowadays it's so hard for people to say, "I don't know." Because now, we're held to such a standard that you need to know things all the time. You need to be chronically online and just aware of everything all the time. We're just not designed to be these high functioning intellectual beings. There's a pseudo something every day. You asked me in my degree, I was a sociology major. When I was in college, everybody kept telling me you'll never find a job. But it's there's millions of sociologists on my phone every day. Dude. There's a new buzzword, there's a new term every day. It's it gets a bunch of likes, so it's it's scripture. and like you need to be calling a person this term. You need to know about all these terms. It's like I feel like we weren't designed to necessarily just know it. Like you have to learn it.
And also like when I think about this a lot, that like the idea that I'm going to keep track of what's going on in the world that's like outrageous and fucked up, you know, by reading the New York Times or something, and actually be able to have like an empathic response to that. I'm not programmed. No human is programmed to do that. I can't take in the events that are happening everywhere in the world on a given day at every scale of distance from me and invest myself in them, you know, which feels disgusting in a way because you're basically saying I don't have the bandwidth to actually really have an appropriate empathic response to something that's happening in Lesotho or wherever. But there's something also really liberating about that for me, which is like you can always know about, as you're talking about, and care about what's right in front of you. You know, you can always be like, okay, I'm committed. It's like this, we care a lot about this neighborhood that we're in. We care a lot about our neighbors here. We feel very connected and we feel really rooted here. And that's a thing where I can maintain that commitment, you know, whereas I can't, even with like what's going on in Israel and Gaza, I can follow to a certain degree, but I know that within a month I'm going to fall off and I'm not going to follow it as closely, you know, but there's there's a greater moral obligation to do that in the daily kind of stomping ground of my life.
It's like people that change their profile pictures with whatever it costs. It's like how long, like just trying to keep it up as long as you can type thing. It's like, so they're like committed to the charade. Like
it's like one
silly.
of the.
It's very. Funny.
It's one of the few, for me, kind of good terms that come to the kind of Jordan Peterson's, you know, all that nonsense is virtue signaling. I like that phrase. I think it's a very good one. Why do you do that?
Uh-oh. You said the thing, man.
Yeah.
No, but I think we were talking about earlier, people not just knowing things. Like we talked about earnest. Like I talked about that in the last. Like sometimes people just
important things like earnest.
Like yeah. I'm gonna tie it all together here. No.
I mean, I think Matt and I do the crossword
every day.
Every day, yeah. And I remember
a crossword puzzle.
The New York Times.
And there's gonna be like a lot of people who have no clue what that is.
You're right. Yeah, no, he's right.
There's gonna be a bunch of people who have no clue what a crossword puzzle is.
And how would you describe it? It's like, it's a grid. You gotta get the clues and stuff.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? It's so normal to you and everything. Yeah. And it's like, whoa, people don't know.
Everybody got the paper. This is what I was going to say. I mean, I remember being a teenager and going to the coffee shop and doing the crossword then. And
no, most people couldn't like sit and do a crossword puzzle now.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
But, you know, you would ask people at the coffee shop the thing you didn't know, right?
Talk to them.
Yeah, you would ask the people like, what's the sports thing I don't know anything about, or what's the movie,
right.
And then if they didn't know, you didn't know, right? Because he didn't go on the internet wasn't accessible like it is now, and now, you know, there's some bullshit I don't know on the crossword and I just Google it, and I think like that's great, wonderful, but also it brings all these pressures on kids that we didn't have. Like I was in this college band and it had this conceit and it was totally terrible. Unlike Matt, who was in a high school band that was almost picked up by Discord Records.
Silly.
But, you know, so like I did all this stupid stuff that I don't know that I would, and stupid art stuff. I mean, it was great. It was a great experience playing in that college band, which played toys for, like from the thrift store. So, you know, it was ridiculous. But I don't want that being part of my artist profile now. You know what I mean? Like that was some thing that I was. Yeah.
We had an idea for a while to, at every event we did, to have a moment. We were like, okay, this is kind of like a pact for everyone here. No one's allowed to videotape it. No one's allowed to shoot it on your phone or to ever talk about this online or you'll be banned from ever coming here again. So to kind of carve out like a tiny little space that was offline, you know, even if it was just a moment at each event, so that it was kind of like a ritual where you were like reminded that there is a world that's not online. Yeah. But I was going to say that the thing of realizing, as you said, Jed, that like there are people out there who wouldn't know what a crossword is really. I find that exciting. Like I'm like,
I love like I'm thinking about making that a gimmick on the show, like trying to point those things out.
I love it.
I'm having those like little moments all the time now because I'm now like finally getting to that age.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, that's been like so normal to me, but
But
people just don't know
though.
what that is.
I mean, it's cool because it's like, oh yeah, there's like a whole other experience that people are having in the world.
That's why in the PLAYBAW music video, I have all old phones.
Oh yeah.
You know, I'm trying to have this like timeless aesthetic to where it's like you don't know what time period really is.
Yeah.
Like I'm not trying to super hard like do a timepiece, but it's like there's no cell phones, you know, blah blah blah, and like the cars, and if there's cars, I'm trying to have them be kind of like older, and it's like, cause I'm kind of fascinated by that right now. Like, you know, like I said, like how do people? But it's weird. It's like you didn't know Ernest was either, so it's like it's not necessarily always just an age thing, I guess.
I could see Jed playing like Columbo in like a reboot of the old,
Yeah,
or like a
totally.
Hawaii Five-0, just like a detective show, you know,
Yeah.
like not too kitschy, but just like that kind of stone-faced cool of like a '70s detective. with,
It's
a big
like
car.
you know Reservoir Dogs. What year
Yeah.
is that in? Like take place in?
Good call.
You have no clue. It's this
Yeah,
timeless
yeah,
sort
yeah.
of not important thing, but it's like there.
Yeah.
That's
Right. You know
powerful,
it's
though.
not
Yeah.
like this moment necessarily.
Yeah, no.
Interesting.
Moments don't really change the way they used to. I mean, there was a time when like there really would be a progression forward, you know, or a progression in terms of change, like in music. You'd be like, this era is over. This thing is happening now. Like it's the end of.
It's
you know.
because everything's just been so fractalized into
Yeah.
subgroups now. Like you like I've talked about on here before. It's like, because of the internet, you know, the more and more you've been more likely to like your parents' and grandparents' music
Right.
now than you would. Like literally, rock and roll was founded on that principle. It's like don't like what your parents like.
Yeah.
They're wrong type deal. You need to like this, and that was perpetuated by the record.
Yeah.
Like you can now take this thing and go away. When before you're all just circled around the
Right.
radio listening to music.
That's interesting. Yeah.
It wasn't like what kind of music. It's like no, we're just gonna listen to music. We're all just gonna sit here and enjoy music. And then that was how it was. And then rock and roll, you know, and all that made it the opposite. You need to like rebel and all that. And that was all marketing and perpetuation. And then now the internet has like kind of brought it full circle.
Yeah.
Now like a 17-year-old kid is like very into a jazz quartet from like the 50s or something.
Well, I asked these artists who exhibited here to come talk to my students at LSU, and they did this icebreaker thing where they asked them, you know, what their favorite song was, and an astonishing number of students said something about the Beatles or something from that era. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's a vibe.
Yeah, but they're also like 19, 20 years. Like that's your most, you know, you care so much about.
And then when
music
the
at that
Beatles
age.
were around, you would say the Beatles. You wouldn't never say whatever your parents listened to.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
You know?
I think that one's also kind of funny though, like and artistically speaking, in that like I don't think the Beatles are that good. Like they're not bad at all, but they're not.
You're gonna get me canceled, man.
I know it's done, but there's like a million great bands from the '60s. You know, there was just like
Yeah,
so
I used
few.
to go on that Dodge. I used to be that guy at like a party.
I wouldn't do that.
There's just the one that got signed, you know, like blah blah blah.
No, it's not quite true. They're not bad. No, it's not that. It's just that there were.
I don't think the Beatles are a bad band, but
They're not bad. When you dig in,
I'm definitely there is definitely this weird energy that people have for them. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's not very genuine.
and they're often people that it's not like they're really into other music. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Is I know
It's
a lot
the
of
Nirvana
people.
shirt at the party.
Exactly, yeah.
It's that whole deal.
Nothing against the Beatles, but I like Yoko Ono more.
Well, no, see, that kind of alludes to what we've been talking about. I was like, you can't even say anything. People are like, oh, you hate the Beatles. It's like, no, I don't. Like, I can't even, like, explain, you know? But that's why I created this space, because I'm trying to, like, you asked me what's the plan. I said, you know, we're just going to have a conversation. I'm not an interviewer. We have conversations, and I'm trying to learn. You know,
I mean, that was definitely the conceit between, you know, it says on our logo, meet, and that was the idea, is that we would be a space where people would come to in their actual physical form, and then they would have conversations because they were here coming to see something.
Well, there's
The
a whole.
irony of it is that we did all this stuff on Twitch because of COVID. So
Yeah.
that gave us this huge archive and led us to connect to people who aren't in Baton Rouge, and that was all great. But the whole premise, which is on our logo, is that it would be a space for people to meet one another face to face and have conversations.
But you're also like, it forced you to be creative about it.
Yeah, it did. It did.
The pandemic.
I mean, I like meat also because there's like risk built in. You know, obviously, so like the idea that you're going to go to a place where you can be seen, you know, in a way that's, I don't know, predatory or antagonistic or something.
No, but like you can die walking out your front door.
Yeah.
So it's like, yes, you're taking a risk by going out, and I think the pandemic, even post-pandemic, for me, I just got comfortable not going anywhere, doing anything, and I'd rather just like do this type of stuff. But it's like, this is also me doing what you're just saying.
Right.
I brought my meat down here to meet.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, in the end though, like, I don't know, like in a funny way, how can I say it? Like, so there's like two ideas. Okay, I took this class when I was in college. It was a grad class when I was in college that I really loved. It was Sam Delaney, the sci-fi author, that was about cities. And it was about the idea that there were two kinds of cities, or two ways of experiencing the city, one of which was through contact, and the other was through networking. And so networking is kind of what we all live in now, which is like you have the networks that you're connected to, and that informs all of your kind of social meetings and all the things you're engaged in. And then kind of like the classic like peak New York City experience is contact. You know, you're on the Lower East Side.
Like the literal like reason why you needed a city.
Exactly.
Back in
Yeah,
the
the
day,
basis of cities is like you run into the strange
Like
person
this whole
and-
living and surviving thing would be like easier in some ways if we were closer.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
that's
there's
what
also-
we learned for sociology. I remember
Right.
the first day of social theory.
Right.
You know, you get into the junior year where you actually do things, and we're talking about Marxism like the first day. I'm like, what the fuck what does this have to do with anything? And then you know, get into globalization, just the literal why societies existed and how they didn't used to. And I just never.
There's
never
a
thought
great,
about that.
I don't know who said it, was Lewis Mumford or someone like that, where or maybe it's like Oscar Wilde saying a pithy kind of thing, but there's this idea that cities are an experiment in how many people can live in proximity to each other without killing each other, you know? And so I like that definition because in a way it's also about sort of how there's this risk built in to just connecting with people, you know?
You stay
like,
how you were. I'm just
okay. You know, like I like that definition. You know, I don't want to get killed in the city, but at the same time, like you got to have risk or you have nothing. You have no art. You have no novelty in the good sense of the word. You know, I mean, you've
it's a
got
scale.
Yeah.
It's a tipping scale. You know, if you don't ever risk, if no one ever risked, we'd all just be the same exact. You know, just cubicles and just a robot. There'd be no life or just humanity.
And we'd be the, you know, ultimate consumer. I mean, we'd be mapped out the way that like Instagram's algorithms, you know, are so good at figuring out what you want to buy, you know, like, or we're talking about OKcupid before. I mean, basically you've got to figure out ways.
They tell you what you want.
Yeah. But you got to figure out how to break, you got to be able to do things that break the algorithm a little bit.
It's a tool, you know, it's like when is a tool not a tool? Whenever you use tools, whenever it uses you, it's no longer a tool.
Yeah, our tools use us now.
Absolutely.
Well, then it's not a tool anymore. Kind of the hammer is the ultimate tool because one side's meant to build, the other side's meant to take down. It's your choice of which one you're going to use, how you're going to use this simple device.
I like that. We should
I like
make some
that
hammer
too.
graphics.
I know. Although it makes it the Nazi skinhead hammer skin, so it's kind of
okay.
in that way, but it's good.
I mean, that's why one of the reasons we decided to make it a free or non-transactional space also was so there wouldn't be barriers to people taking other kinds of risks. So we wanted to break down the barriers to risk taking.
Yeah, it's fully libertarian. It's plain.
Left libertarian, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's another thing like I admire about you guys because like a lot of people from Baton Rouge probably wouldn't do some of the things you do just because it's like they're from here, you know, there's stigmas and blah blah blah. Like I remember one time it was a Soul Lab Sundays and one dude was just like in awe. He's like, right on Government Street, man.
Huh.
He's like, this ain't the government I knew, type thing, you know.
You know what's weird is that we 2 nights ago there's a shooting, you know, right outside, and we weren't here. I heard about the next day. There've been like 4 shootings, I think, right, since we've been here.
You've been pretty adamant to lay the record straight on how, you know, it's not like the statistics these are the statistics, and it's easy to like have those old BR stigmas, like, oh, that's just old BR, you know. Of course a shooting happened there, and you're like, actually...
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think this gets into racism, which is kind of always the specter, you know, here, and particularly as people from the North, when you move to the South for the first time and are really embedded there and hopefully have an open mind and are curious about it, it's really a different animal, you know, than what you experience, even in D.C., which is Southern in a lot of ways. But, you know, for me, it's kind of the...
Right outside of D.C., yeah.
Yeah.
Went to a wedding into Chesapeake Bay on the other side of it, and it's,
The Eastern Shore is definitely Southern.
It could have been Denham Springs.
Yep. But, like...
Shout out Denham Springs.
You know, the racism thing here is intense because it's not open, so much of it. You know, it's polite. It's that Southern polite racism thing where people have ideas that they've formed about, say, Government Street or this neighborhood, you know, that for me, they ultimately come down to that. You know, they ultimately come down to the fact that they're, you know, basically white people looking at non-white neighborhoods and seeing them in a certain light. And
Well, we're on Government Street.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
Well, if you drive down this way on nighttime, there's a lot of neon signs now. And I feel like you know you're in a gentrified area if you got a boo-boo neon signs. You're basically on St. Claude in New Orleans type of deal. And I see government turning into that.
Well, yeah, the new bar, you know, is a big step.
Dude, in the last, since you've been here,
Yeah.
the new bars, tons of them now. I've lost complete track.
Well, no, to fire, like, I don't want to say their name because I have nothing
Oh,
against
they
them.
don't. They need to, you know, they didn't pay for advertising.
They're blocked on the street, you know, and it's...
Oh, you mean like the new,
Yeah.
So that's...
But it's,
another
it's a
one.
big deal because...
And nothing against them.
No, absolutely
But
not.
it's hard not to... You can't turn a blind eye to these things. Like I said,
Yeah.
one time, you know, there's a restaurant further down. And it's like, oh, here's that new restaurant. Oh, don't mind that person. Just step over them. You know, kind of deal. It's like,
Right.
That's how it literally is. It's like, it's weird. It's like, can you really, like, boast
Right.
this place when it's...
Yeah.
Well, but
Just
also...
don't look over there, you know. Just
know,
don't
like-
point the camera over there.
Next to that bar, and again, it's nothing against them. I'm sure they're nice people, but there's a place called Ebony and Ivory. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Right next to that, it's an older guy, Wayne, you know, who he does really beautiful furniture restoration, and he's been there probably
Oh, I do know what
40
you're
years.
talking about. I
Yeah,
didn't know that was the name of it.
very like kind of a indiscreet place. You know, it's not going to jump out at you. It's kind of a subtle place. You might not notice it, but those guys are embarking on this whole kind of community space project and doing all this good work, like kids art classes, and he does beautiful furniture restoration that they're selling in a kind of showroom right there to kind of fund this stuff. And it's amazing to me in the city that this bar opened up and all 225 and Advocate and everything are covering this, and like as though it's a big event. No one's covering what Ebony and Ivory's doing, and they're not going to. And so the actual like real stuff going on around here, and there's a lot of it, and real people, you just wouldn't know.
Dude, that's,
you know?
that's the essence of this DIY underground
Yeah.
stuff. Like it takes people like that like look at things like that like you, like I said, you're very compassionate in that way. To where in the past, I've tried to work on myself. In the past, I used to be defensive. You know, like angry. I would get angry that people are, you know, people are treating it like that. And it's like people just don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
It's usually not malicious.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, well, then I'll have to step up and, you know.
But I
type of
think
deal.
it's weird because like you say it's not malicious, and I agree. But I think that's true of like a lot of the violence in the world, and that's
Yeah.
actually what makes it so intractable and difficult. People really mean well. You know, violence is not happening. Horrible, you know, racist violence, bombing in the Middle East, etc. I don't think it's happening because there's this active hatred where people want to go out and do terrible things to other people. I do think it's closer to sort of a kind of ignorance or kind of misalignment, you
Yeah.
know, with being with other people, you know, and really
Delicate and complex.
yeah, and just caring about other people. I feel like that's a big missing piece kind of in the world.
Last episode we talked about good intentions.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's very broad, but I feel like good intentions are big. And
Well, no.
good is subjective or whatever. I guess.
But it's funny because one of the first things that comes to mind is that terrible aphorism, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Like as though what we
Yeah. need
need is like some reason to be wary of having good intentions, you know?
Well, I guess it goes back to what I was saying earlier, how it's like I used to think, you know what you want to know.
Right.
And like that's where my head was at when I was thinking that. It's like, yeah, some people can conveniently not know stuff that they're not searching and trying to learn.
Well, actually, it's funny because when we did, we had a really profound experience with this when we did the restaurant with Toon Day and some of the guests. Remember?
I'm not sure what year.
There was one guest in particular who won't see this, who was.
Oh.
I lost my light.
That's okay. It's mood lighting
No,
now.
we're like towards the back end, anyways.
Yeah, I gotta say, I was a far more cynical person before we started Yes, We Cannibal. And even though we have had some bad experiences, we've had our share of interpersonal conflicts, we've had our share of bullshit, of strange situations. Running this place, really, it's been the most optimistic thing in my life. It's been the thing that really has. I was a person who always wanted connection. I liked going to the cafe when the cafe was people having their coffee and talking to one another. Yeah. I liked going to bars. I liked going to shows. So I guess I always was sort of on that side of things. Mm-hmm. But I have had the most meaningful conversations and connections with people, whether, we stay connected or not, through this place.
Right.
Because it is built around an openness and a set of ideas. And that's a thing that we really, we tried to aim our policies towards that and promote.
You guys
that.
love people.
Yeah, we kind of do.
Certainly.
It's actually an ongoing joke. So we'll have these events.
And we'll get
it'll be
pissed
an event
off
where,
if
like,
somebody does something stupid. But then it's like...
Well, I was going to say the funny thing, which is we'll have an event and we expect, it's going to be some giant event and like 5 people come. We had a noise show recently that was fantastic. It was these
these New Orleans kids.
They were so good. But it was, again, we didn't really want to be here. We kind of had agreed to it. We were like, no, we got to go sort of be at this event. And then by the end of the night, it was like incredible. And I was so taken
we were like,
with all of them.
We love these kids.
But it was like that where at the end we were like, oh, that was great. I love them. And I joke with Liz because it's every single time.
Yeah.
It's always like this sort of regeneration.
No,
of
you guys
optimism.
love people. Like I was telling someone
absolutely.
at work about you earlier. She knew who you were. And I was like, yeah, man, you got the car. And he's like, hey, Jay, you want a hug, man? You a hugger? You a hugger? And you're like, yeah, sure, I guess. And it's like, half the times I would like be filming something here. I'm like so in my zone, like worrying about where my tripod's gonna go and this and that. And it's like you always like help me just like come down from there. It's
right
like,
on.
dude,
That's
why
nice.
are you being such a curmudgeon right now? It's gonna be okay. Just look at this guy. He's like he's got good energy.
Oh, that's sweet.
And same with you. You'll just like you're not as like you won't seek
voluble.
someone out and just hey, I'm gonna just talk to you. Like I'll be in the back and then you'll catch me. Next thing you know, we're like 10 minutes deep in like a good conversation.
She secretly is just as.
I mean,
You guys just care about people and love people.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I want to before it's like a left turn though that I want to make sure we talk about something, which is that.
Go ahead.
Oh, did I cut you off though?
No, go for it.
Let's say 3 times a year, we get emails from cannibals, people with cannibal kink, and they want to be eaten, and it's really weird. I mean, it's fine. I have no judgment of them or anything, but I just wanted to make sure we got this thing. So we may not know this, that 3 times a year we get people who are like, when can we meet? I want to do this, And sometimes it'll be like they're drunk and they send like 4 emails in a row.
So I've heard about this before. I don't recall
Yeah.
where I've heard about this, but people who are watching this probably don't know. There are literally real life cannibals out in the internet sphere who want to be eaten.
Right.
They literally want a person to eat them, and this is not that.
Yes, the message here is to all those people that write to us. We're in our gallery, and I wish you luck with your kink and your fetish, but this is not the way.
That's the where you draw the line.
Indeed.
Well, our name actually has really specific references to like these important
Obnoxious.
art ideas.
Yeah.
It's a combination of like political sloganeering, and then there was this document in the 1920s that basically started modern art in Brazil, or I shouldn't say started modern art in Brazil, but it was made by the husband of maybe the most famous Brazilian painter. And it's called the Cannibal Manifesto. And it's a manifesto about how does Brazil make its own art instead of copying Portugal, which was its colonizer, And what did they do? And the guy says we need to cannibalize from everything that's important to us and make something that's uniquely ours. So that's where the name comes from.
And it has this undertone of like you kind of take from your enemies. Like you kind of are around your enemies to take their best qualities. So in a funny way, it's kind of an alternative way of relating to like colonialism or any power struggle is not, I'm gonna rigidly set myself in opposition to this person. Instead, I'm going to actually kind of take what I can
I'm
from
going to cannibalize.
I'm going to appropriate. It's cultural appropriation against your enemy. So it's kind of like if you were to appropriate from Trump, you know, like I can't say I'm a Kanye fan anymore, but, you know, there was a moment when he was interested to go meet with Trump and figure out kind of like, well, what can I do with this? How can I make an art project out of it? And I feel like I saw, before Kanye really went off the deep end, I feel like I did see something exciting in that. Like the idea of kind of like go towards your adversary and kind of like don't fight them exactly, but kind of try and take from them what you can to actually make something better or more equitable.
Well, fear breeds hate, and fear comes from the unknown. So there's something to be said about confronting the unknown with good intentions.
Yeah.
And I think that's big. I had a conversation with someone the other night who they posted something about Candace Owens and Andrew Tate, and I just was like, what about them is insightful to you? And they were defensive off the bat, but after a while, I think they realized like we were just having a conversation.
I love it when that happens now. You know, like when you're talking about like, I probably couldn't do it about Andrew Tate, but Candace Owens I could talk to someone about. I
didn't touch the Andrew Tate part. I just basically said, do you think people can change? You know, like what do you know about people's intentions and stuff like that? And then I brought up her 2008 lawsuit against the school board with the NAACP's backing for racism. And she was just like, well, she's always been open about that. And I was like, well, do you not think she just kind of sides with the lucrative side at that point? And she's like, well, no, I think that she just changed with age, and I don't think it has anything to do with the money part. And I was like, you know, that's interesting, because I do, but I can't confirm that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like interesting to hear someone's side of it. Sometimes it might be exactly what you were expecting,
but I think
sometimes
like,
it's maybe not.
There's something about resisting. I mean, I can hear this voice in my head, people's voices in my head being like, I fucking hate Candace Owens. And you're like, what good are you doing? Like, I could do that too and go around and be like, I fucking hate Trump. And maybe I do in a way, but like at the same time, like, what are you doing? You know, like, what good are you putting in the world? I've stumbled upon people
like that go live and do live debate on TikTok a couple times. And there's one dude who, he debates, it just says, why do you think being gay is wrong? And like you can only call in like if you really genuinely think it's wrong. And like someone called in and it was a lesbian, and she's like, I'm gay, but I think how you're going about this is wrong. She was like, love is a universal language, and you'd convert more people if you were more understanding and you listened. And I was like, oh, poor girl, she doesn't realize she's not trying to convert people, she's trying to make money on TikTok and dominate people, you know, make them look stupid. But which he does a good job. But it's like,
right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. I'm not necessarily one to say something like that, but I believe it. Yeah, sure. Love is the universal language, and like you can definitely achieve more through listening to people, even if they are dangerous and inflammatory.
I think so. I might say it's Cindy. We haven't mentioned Cindy Wonderful, but another shout out, someone we really love here, who she kind of just brings this light touch of positivity in a really kind of meaningful way, like a genuine way that I think is really like solid and kind of deep. She's an incredibly caring and kind of like open, you know what I mean? Like she's not, have you ever seen Cindy be negative per se? I never really have. Maybe a little bit, but.
I appreciate a light touch of positivity, because overly positive I can be turned off by
that's just
toxic
like neurotic,
positivity.
Yeah. Neurotic
well, it's just hard for me to believe you.
Exactly, yeah.
There's, you know, you're being, I don't know.
It's funny, like Gus is 9, my son, and he'll go through the phases of being like, oh, I'm into this now, I'm not into that anymore. And I'll find myself saying to him a couple times, I'm like, you know, you can still like that and just love more things. Like you can always love more things and make space for that. You don't have to turn against this thing in order to love this thing. So maybe I'm saying that to myself because I've repeated it to him a couple of times. But I like that way of thinking about it, which is like you can. When I was younger with art, you're kind of you're creating an aesthetic, and you're trying to pick like what fits and what doesn't. You're really particular about it.
You don't know when you're younger.
Yeah, and you can make space to love all kinds of things. Like you don't need to be so curatorial about what you care about.
You unlocked a memory because you remind me of kind of my older brother.
Huh.
And he was my everything when I was like 5.
Oh.
So that's like 95 and like MTV, everything. Like he was a teenager. So I was like, yeah. So like I remember we were watching like MTV or something. I remember a video came on. There was a dude with a pink mohawk, and my brother was like, "Oh, I hate this song." And I just remember being like, "What? How? Like what?
How could you hate a song?
How can you? Yeah, I was like, "What? This is amazing!" Like, cause like every single thing he liked, I loved, and I just like couldn't understand like why. Like, why can you do? How can you not like? And I just like remember that. And it's like, how do you even start to learn how to not like stuff?
But it ties back into the kind of consumer thing where you do such a service to the people who want to use you to make money by having strong opinions. But if you're like, I hate this, I love this, I hate this.
I've learned there's a time and a place.
Yeah.
And a method. I get critiqued. Sometimes it's not what you're saying, it's how you're saying it. Yeah. And I try to work on that a lot.
I will say I hate Jeff Landry. Like, I hate him. Like, I really hate Jeff Landry. But
he's it's weird, though, because it's like, doesn't it make complete sense?
It makes complete sense that he's...
Louisiana, yeah.
Does it, though? I mean...
Yeah, he's just such a character.
I don't know. He's just...
Fits right in.
Well, you explain it to us.
Yeah, we don't get it. Because the stuff about wanting to track women, like if they go out of state for care.
I mean more of just his caricature, his style. Just, he's such a... Like, you can easily just clip him up and just show someone not from here, and they'll be like, this isn't real, right? Like, this is...
He kind of is like a politician on True Detective. I could see that. You know what I
mean?
Oh,
he's... no, I have a coworker that had to, interview him and stuff a lot he's from the north, and he's just like, it's just like an insult to his craft that he has to just like legitimately, seriously report.
Remember Tony Spell?
And now he's the governor.
Yeah.
Do you remember Tony Spell during the pandemic?
Oh, dude, we were gonna go with Baton Rouge Sucks and do a bit. We were gonna go in hazmat suits. And to one of his services.
Nice.
But it just fell through.
He was the megachurch guy.
He's still there, man. He didn't go nowhere. Like, I have a buddy who lives on the road right there, and I drove past there a couple months ago, and it's getting... That's what happens with these megachurch people. You don't keep up with them, they're going to grow.
Yeah.
I just finished a documentary on Gwen Shamlin. The Remnant Fellowship lady, the weight loss church lady.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like, they just grow and grow and grow.
Did you watch the Teal Swan one?
No, I don't know what that is.
That's interesting. Teal Swan is this kind of new age influencer who claims to heal people of trauma, but she has really no training in what she's doing. And I mean, like anyone else, there are good things.
Oh, wait, are you talking about the Ugandan baby lady?
No. Ugandan baby lady?
There was one I watched recently. It's like a woman who was... going to Uganda and like basically setting up makeshift hospitals and stuff and like doing medical procedures.
Whoa. God, that doesn't surprise
Without
me.
any training.
She was called by God.
Oh my God.
That's training for you, evangelical.
Didn't need training.
God called her.
And like lots of children died.
Fuck, man.
Well, she brings up statistics. Oh, this mortality rate is common. And then there were like nurses and doctors present, but like, I think the notion was that, like, she would, like, push them aside and, like, it's, like, the best job they're going to find. So they're like, okay.
Right. Did you watch Wild Country?
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's been a while, but, yeah, that was a good one. You're talking about the Oregon.
Yeah, it's a funny one, though, because it's a great story. Osho. What's his other name? But I like Osho. He wrote great stuff.
No, I watched it, like, twice.
Yeah.
That was a really good one. For people who don't know, it's... people came to got land in Oregon to do their religion, freedom of religion, right?
Rajneesh, yeah.
Rajneesh, yeah, and the locals definitely didn't like it. But I mean, things are complex.
Yeah.
It definitely wasn't. There was definitely reason to question. Put it to you that way.
It's funny because with cults, there's a whole thing where like
It was along the lines of a cult.
it was absolutely a cult, but like there are good things about cults. Like I think this is sort of interesting that like cult really is just short for culture. So it's basically people being like, let's invent a culture, and we're supposed to be like cults are bad, and yet obviously we live in
Bad cults are bad.
Yeah. Well, okay, fair. But I mean, the thing is, like, our culture at this time is a weird cult too. Like
Culture is a means of survival. So if your culture is to hurt people, then that's the opposite of culture.
oh yeah.
So then then you're not a cult. I don't know.
Speaking of culture, cannibal culture, Cannibal Singles Club.
Oh yeah.
Okay, you're tying it all the way back to the beginning.
Flagging.
I'm plugging. You plug.
So in 2021, Liz had the idea to do an art yearbook that we did, and to do a album with that, like a vinyl record. And our friend put together a collage that was drawn on all these people who had performed here and stuff, and talks and things. And then it led to putting out records, even though we're not a record label per se. But so we put out a couple of LPs, like this one, Hans Dombratz and Matt Baldwin. And now we've just started, we're doing a project called Cannibal Singles Club, which is 845 records. And the first one is by a band called Crushed Diamond from Homa that we love and really interesting.
Crushed diamonds.
Crushed, not crushed.
Crushed diamonds.
And they're almost like analog techno kind of.
Analog techno, and they love polka.
Yeah, they love it, very non-ironically.
Yeah.
But then, let's see, so they're doing one, Ronnie Bourgeois, her band Fake Last Name, we're doing one of them, a band called Guts Club from New Orleans, Helen Gillet, we're releasing a performance she did here, and then 4 other ones. So really what it is kind of it's an art exhibition. It's an exhibition that's on 845s. And we're selling them a little bit above cost, but pretty close to cost, and doing it kind of like a subscription, so people can sign up to receive each one as they come out. And the first one comes out November 15th. So that's kind of a big thing on our radar right now, is the beginning of this project.
So it's not an actual singles club.
Not for dating yet. But if you meet someone through it and want to date them and they want to date you, we totally.
Yeah, you're not saying it's not.
No, absolutely.
It is.
Right, like you should get the people you're interested to sign up for Cannibal Singles Club, and then you should listen to the singles
and
together.
Make out.
Yeah.
If things
Do
go
crossword puzzles.
Yeah.
Yeah, after you're done making
It's
out.
a hot date right there.
Yeah.
Hey,
For us, that would
Yeah,
be.
it is, for sure. But yeah, we're really excited about that. We have a bunch of art shows coming up that we're excited about, and yeah, we have a million things going on as usual.
And it's like modeled on these things that we grew up with. These like, it's modeled on the Rough Trade singles.
Yeah, it's modeled on Rough Trade, an old record label still around that we love, and then Sub Pop, the record label, Nirvana and things like that. They did a singles club in the '90s where you could only get them if you subscribed.
Oh, I get it now. Singles.
Yeah, singles
Yeah.
in that sense. But,
Yeah.
I watched that 90s documentary.
Oh, The Dark Side
Hype.
of the '90s. Oh yeah, how is that?
It's good. That's
Yeah.
how I learned about. I think that's how I learned about Sub Pop.
Huh.
It was a documentary just going over the Seattle scene,
Yeah.
as opposed to talking about grunge. They really just went start to finish with it, and like Sub Pop was, it was the DIY indie bands
Yeah.
label,
That's a good label.
or started that way.
I like their aesthetic too.
Yeah, but you have a million things going on. What is going on in here right now? It is October. It's spooky season.
So this is the Bass Ghost Shop.
Yeah, there's always some deeper meaning, man. What's it about?
This is from the mind of an artist named Molly Jo Shea. Shay. Jesus.
Let me help you out.
She grew up in L.A. and she took a job in Mississippi, in Gulfport, It's in Gulfport, yeah?
Yeah, go for it.
In Gulfport, Mississippi. And when she moved out here from LA, she started dating a gunsmith. She got introduced to all this like hunting and fishing culture. Over in this corner, we have this pottery of hers that she went out and shot with a gun. So that's what that is.
I have to get some B-roll of that.
There's like this show that she curated here called Bass Ghost Shop. There's 12 artists in it.
Yeah, it's not just her. It's definitely of her mind. And the installation is very much like everything is all kind of mixed together.
And she's like are kind of crazy, like in a really good way. Like, she's really mad. I like her.
But so she's going to be doing a performance here because she became so interested in Bass Pro Shop. It's like an outsider coming in and seeing the taxidermy and like the whole aesthetic of the place. So this is her vision in some way of...
Well, and there's a whole thing about, being a woman and getting interested in kind of survivalist things in a very non-ironic way. She's really into fishing and going hunting maybe and things like that. But there is a whole thing about kind of, what we would call toxic masculinity and kind of exploring what is Bass Pro. I think she likes Bass Pro very much.
We were talking about this earlier, how you get these stigmas.
Yeah.
You almost need an outsider to come in and help you rebrand it for your own self. It's like, oh, well... And first thought comes to mind, Bass Pro Shop for me is like, oh man, just redneck stuff. I don't want nothing to do with that. And it's like, but do I really know about the Bass Pro Shop like that, man? I don't.
Yeah, you got to come on Saturday to her performative vision. So this is Bass Ghost Shop.
Singles Club Saturday?
Yeah, we wish.
Bass Pro.
No, you said it was her
well, she's going to be...
it was her interest that got her into this, right? Her love interest, you said.
Part of it.
Sorry, dating a
careful who you date.
Yeah.
But
Totally.
she dresses up as she does a performance in the persona of Cooter the Possum, which involves like pretty intense makeup. Cooter the Possum. But it's very smart, and there's a lot going on at the same time. It's like a really accessible show. It's really great artists in it.
But also, let me just plug that everything here is also connected to an interactive map of the Bass Pro Shop in Denham Springs. Yeah. And she's going to end the show by doing a tour there and giving an artist talk at the Hooters across the street. So it
November
should be
4th.
a pretty wild time. And then this Saturday, she's going to do performances and have a Halloween party here. So 6 to 10, Saturday night, the 28th.
And then like people are like caravanning to the Hooters in Denham?
No, that's on
another
the 4th,
day.
November 4th.
Yeah.
But then the other thing, just quickly to shout it out, is that we have a bunch of great art shows coming up that are all on our website, which is current finally. But we're bringing a guy named Curtis Schreer in January or maybe February, who is part of this collective called the Ant Farm that were active in the 70s in California, who were like a utopian architecture collective, and they're among my favorite artists. I'm very excited about this. They did things like they created the blueprint for an embassy for the dolphins, right? So like it was this kind of a submersible embassy that would go down and communicate with them. But he's still alive and working, and he's going to be building a model of the Alps.
Possibly out of oil derricks, possibly not.
Filling the whole space with this model.
Ant Farm was all about like radicalizing architecture, so they came up with inflatable architecture, quick, easy architecture that anyone could build. They taught people how to make large-scale inflatable structures.
Very, very cool.
Yeah. So.
How do you get in touch with most of these people? Do they reach out?
We just
it's all different for everybody.
I mean, with this,
that's not quite true.
There's a curator we're working with who has done a retrospective on Ant Farm, and I happen to have gone to grad school with her. So, there was a personal connection. But
like I said, I refer to you as a pipeline. That's literally how that works.
Well, it's exciting for us because,
we really admire these artists.
Yeah, we admire the artists, but also, Liz shows at BRG, and we like BRG very much. But this is not a city with a very active art scene.
What is BRG?
Baton Rouge Gallery. Great place, artist collective, very old one. But there's not a huge amount of art happening in this town, so it's pretty exciting to be able to actually bring in some of these people. And we just found out today that we're listed on art forums, like art guides, which is really exciting to us. Because it's probably the preeminent arts magazine in the world and has a huge readership. So people who are interested in art will end up in Baton Rouge looking in the guide to figure out what to check out. And now there's kind of like something there. So that feels good. Right?
But I will say, you asked how we hook up with these people. a lot of these people were people that we really admired, and we just sent them an email.
That's what I was that's why I asked, because, yeah, I know that feeling, and, yeah, like it's, whenever I was starting to get in the SoundCloud scene, it's like, man, what can I do to get such and such down here? You know, you guys are successful at it.
Talk to them. You know, I mean, it's like literally just like...
It's the parallel of, you know, what we were talking about earlier with Face the Flow.
Yeah.
Where you just, you know... But it's got to be a pipeline. It's got to be a two-way street, so they have to be able to want to come and, like, you know, making that happen type of deal.
I mean, you know... For the most part, people are great. I mean, it comes back to the same thing. I really think, like when I was saying most people are redeemable, most people are really friendly and pretty approachable. Then there's some fuckers, you know, but like the vast majority of people are like pretty interested to talk to people who like share interests or whatever, and the world's a pretty good place, I think. So.
And so for instance, like, there's a good example. How long has it been up? How long will it be up? Like, how similar is that to the other?
This show?
Well, it's one thing. Whenever y'all first started, you had kind of like an art residency deal, and it's like people may not know anything about how things work, and it's like the person was here for like a month. They lived in the back.
Oh, Laura, yeah.
We've done that since. I mean, she was a friend of ours too. So
kind of what's happened, like how long? Because you don't just set it up and break it down that day.
Well,
like, it's also going to be here for a while.
Molly was here for about 5 days, staying here, and then she had 2 friends fly out from Los Angeles to help her. It'll be up for this is only up for 3 weeks, but like our next show's up for 6. So shows kind of run between 4 and 6 weeks usually, 3 and 6.
And you just you just know that routine because you came up in that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also what makes sense for us, sort of. We sort of want to, we're trying to be a little more... Well, we get excited about stuff, and we want to see it happen here.
Yeah.
So we end up having these schedules where we try and pack in a lot of different things because we get really excited. We met Molly through a show, or no, you saw her work on Instagram and reached out to her.
Well, kind of, but through other people. But yeah, we basically just met her, and she was, kind of
She was
like-minded
dynamic and exciting. Yeah. She had an exciting vision.
Super competent.
So we wanted to see that happen. And...
But we got other cool stuff coming up. Like, actually, there's this woman, Veronica Cross, a friend of ours in New Orleans, who she does like estate sales, I think, and she came across this weird collection from this artist, Genevieve Saurage, I think, who died last year or maybe earlier this year, and she had been this like amazing kind of solo traveling woman photographer in the 70s and early 80s who just traveled around and shot the early punk scene. So she had all these negatives and things of like the Sex Pistols and Bauhaus and whatever. And so Veronica reached out and was like, can I do a show at Yeswecannibal? And we were like, absolutely, like why not? So people also come to us with stuff, I think, more and more artistically, So it's all variable. But there's kind of always a show up. I mean, that's sort of thing that's changing things a little bit, is we're really back to focusing on being a gallery, and that can obviously make it complicated to do other events in here. So
that's why whenever I'm talking to you about booking something, so I was like, this is what's going on that week type thing.
Well, the thing is that when we have 3D shows up, it's complicated. When we have 2D shows up, it's not. But like the guy we were talking about earlier from Harmonic, Stu, reached out about his band Baby in the 90s playing with some Venezuelan punk band, and we were able to say yes because they wanted to do it outside, but we couldn't do a show in here right now.
Oh, yeah, that's another thing. It's like Jack and those raves are usually outside, which like creates a cool vibe and aesthetic, but it's probably just because...
Well, it's tricky. It's gotten really big. Really, sometimes it's really big, which is cool, but it's a great... there's some definite kid energy that could lead to things being broken that could be really detrimental. Yeah. So they're going to move in, I think, next month if they can. But they have to kind of change what they're doing to make it much more low-key for that to work,
Yeah.
I should shout out also that Jack is the executive producer on the Cannibal Singles Club.
Okay, cool. One thing, if we can do, is this, I know this light's dying on me. Can we turn that green light to us?
Yeah.
And then, so yeah, you were saying though, like you were, sure. But basically when that light goes out, we'll wrap it up. But, you were talking about like, I don't know, it's just like taking risks And just the courage to even do something like this. I feel like but it's like the way y'all came up helps. You said you lived in a Winnebago thing, upstate New York, and you were trying to find ways to like make it work in DC, and like that. Did you had things like this then?
I mean, I think
Just through your experiences, what are the influence?
Well, so I spent most of my 20s in New York, and it was when New York was really transitioning, and every artist I knew there, they had some kind of weird deal on either their studio or their living space. So that was always like, you always needed to find a way to do it, right? I think the thing about meeting Matt is that we just took a gamble on this. I didn't even have a job when we signed the lease on this place, and we just said, we'll figure it out, And I never would have done that before, but I also think I was at a stage in my life when I knew that it was vitally important to have a creative space, a creative space of connection, that I had a voice in.
Yeah.
And I knew that I needed that, and I knew that I was willing to do a lot to have that.
Well, it made me, when you said that, it made me think of something, which is, we're both in our 40s, and like, there is a thing with men in particular, right? Where like, for a lot of people, not everyone, you look at your dad or some man of his generation, and they don't have any friends, and they're not connected. And I think it's a big part of why men die. There's a whole thing where men will retire and then have a heart attack within a year. And there's something about aging in a way where you become more connected, that to me is really important. Like, I don't have any interest in being young. I don't have any interest in trying to hold on to my youth, but I'm really interested in being connected to everyone that I can, because I think it makes you healthier and wiser, and it makes your life better. And so for me, there's a way in which it is kind of connected to aging too, which is how do I want to be when I'm 75? I don't want to be doing crossword puzzles alone in a room. I want to be going to Jack's rave when I'm 75,
I could see you do that.
I think we had these experiences of older people providing spaces or just being generous with their experience or their assets in the form of a space or something. So we had a model for sure already of what that might look like. Then, we had lots of experiences in these kinds of spaces that, looking back, were important to us when we were super young, And then we also were at a point, right, where we understand how vital having a creative space is. It's not something that can be lived without. And, people who are in the arts, they hear this all the time. They go to school and all this stuff, but really, if you can live without the arts, you're going to, because it's not financially, but it's not a space that's going to make you money. Even if you do make money off of it, you're going to be one of the least paid elements in the money-making matrix.
Yeah.
So there's a lot easier ways to make money. So either you're going to realize you can't live without it, or you're going to, realize that you need that other things are more important to you.
Yeah.
And at this point in my life, I had realized that I really couldn't live without it.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things I'll do what I'm doing. Even if someone came and said hey, I know what the rest of your life's gonna be like, you're never gonna make any money off this, I'm gonna still do it.
Yeah, you would, I can tell.
Type thing. So even I get all this stuff together to do this podcast on my own, and it's and all the things I do, it's a bitch to do them, but it's doing them is, I recognize what you said, it's important to me, because otherwise I'm gonna sit at the house, get old quick, be depressed, and focus on medical issues or something.
Right.
When I don't want to do that. I want to go and live. I want to be. I resonate with that. The older I get, the more connected.
Well, and Mike is a good example, right? Because like there's a way in which I really admire him because he doesn't strike me as wanting to be anything other than what he is. Like maybe his ass, Mike Solab.
Yeah.
Like he's kind of got his thing down, but he's also still really fresh. He's not going through the motions, and he obviously kind of really is into doing things at the scale he does, and he's really consistent. And that's the kind of artist that I really admire. It's just like you're doing your thing, you're staying awake and curious, but you're also kind of not. You're not chasing the wrong things. That really inspires me.
No, a guy like him, he definitely he knows who he is, and he's kind of got he has his like journey figured out.
Yeah.
So he can, do what he wants to do.
Yeah, it's good.
And that's always really good. But so what do you you kind of told us some things, but just what do you have coming up? The rest of the year. Do you have that figured out?
Yeah, let me think. We've got there's that show. I'm out of order. The community fridge thing actually is one thing on the radar, which is that at some point this fall, that's going to get rebuilt with a much more permanent structure for the fridge. So that shed will get rebuilt. We've got some music events with like I said, that what are they called? Baby in the 90s band is playing with Venezuelan punk band.
Yeah.
We are. The next arch, we've got Molly's events are coming up, and then after that we open a show with Manon Bellet, who's a French artist in New Orleans that we really love. Difficult to describe her work, but very kind of abstract, elemental, elegant work.
And she's going to do this cool, some of the work she's going to show she makes by taking ferrofluid, which is like a liquid with iron in it. And she takes like a little toy robot with a magnet on it and moves that around on the glass, and that pulls the ferrofluid around, and it makes these beautiful kinds of drawings, and she's going to do a performance.
So it's like drawing. It's like drawing with like magnetic force. And then I think an experimental music friend of hers will do a tie-in performance with that. Irina Kruchanina, who is a choreographer at LSU, is doing a kind of endurance performance in November with a friend of hers who's a poet, where they kind of go back and forth between poetry and dance. We're doing
and before that opens...
the pop-up this Friday. There's the Bumware is doing a little pop-up market. But go ahead.
And before Manon's show opens, there's a great art and art and poetry, art and literature magazine called Fine Print here. They are going to do a issue release party, which is also a benefit.
Yes, very tragic death.
On November 10th?
Somewhere in there. They're really great. They're a really good literary magazine. It's very odd that they're based in Baton Rouge. I don't know how they ended up here exactly, but Dylan Krieger and Chris Payne, really excellent people. This will be the third event they've done here. We're doing a bagel pop-up in early January that I wrote to listen to.
A bagel pop-up?
We made bagels.
Matt makes bagels.
So I figured out that you can actually make New York-style bagels at home. I never thought you could, and I love making them once a year because it's a pain in the ass. So I think around New Year's, we're going to do one bagel pop-up here. And then at some point in the new year...
Can't wait.
You should come.
I didn't ever eat bagels until I went to Tulane, which is a lot of New York, New Jersey kids.
It's hard to find good bagels, in Louisiana. I found.
Yeah.
But
then
make them
Nathan.
in the water.
Yeah, it's multiple steps because you do you got to ferment them, put them back in the fridge, take them out of the fridge, boil them. But they're good. I'll give you one for free if you come. It's non-transactional. But
Non-transactional.
Nathan
oh yeah, and then a dear friend of mine, Nathan Mumau Jackson, experimental musician, DJ, etc. He'll be here for a residency in November and be doing some events while he's here. And there'll be other shit, right?
Yeah, that's what we can recall right now off the top of our head.
I just wanted to make sure you had an opportunity to get that out there.
Well, and apparently you're going to perform at Future X, we heard.
We'll see. Jack said I could. 10-minute set. That's punk as hell, man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna run the classics, man. He's got me. I've kind of been over my classic vibe, my Vampire Pimp out that swamp era, but he's revived me, man. Ever so often people are just like, "Bored, get to the door, man." It's like, man, I just need to
Yeah.
come out of the shadows with that.
That sounds
Just
awesome.
because it's like you see these young kids and you see like his posts and they're just like doing the thing I was doing like in 2017. It's like, oh, I want to do it again. You know,
Yeah,
it's like
man,
that
do it.
pure vibe. You know, that pure energy. They just ain't. You know, like they haven't seen my flavor of it. You know, it was
ready. The world is
intimidating
ready.
at first whenever I noticed there's a whole new generation of these kids, and I said, it's like, so I told him, it's yours now, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's totally yours. And he's like, yeah, but, you know, he's very, like, I wouldn't have been here without you kind of deal. And it's like, really? And it's like, he brought up things to me where he like, man, you don't remember, like, I bought the shirt I'm wearing. I bought your shirt at Bloomfest that time. I was like, yeah, you did.
That's crazy.
And then you go and watch videos of performances at that Bloomfest. He's right there in the front row with my shirt on. It's like,
How old is he? He's like,
this is
15.
probably like 2018, so
okay.
he was probably like 19 or
That's
something.
awesome.
Whenever I first saw him, it was in his band Mr. San Francisco.
Were they like
Well, he reminded me, so like I walked in the Mid-City Ballroom and everyone in the whole place is sitting on the floor.
oh my god.
And I'm like, of course. And like he was like, no, that was a band called Shrugs. And I was like, whoa, I forgot about Shrugs.
Shrugs, wow.
And like it was the quintessential. It's like, you know. So I remember one time Mr. San Francisco was playing at Atomic Pop Shop. Used to be a record store / venue. It was, like I said on the last episode, it says record store in the front, party in the back. And I remember Mr. San Francisco. They're all like high school kids, man, playing in thank
Hell
God
yeah.
for these places like this.
Yeah.
And I remember leaning over to Mean Zach of Baton Rouge Sucks and said, these kids have no clue they're making heroin music. I knew you guys would love that one.
That's so good.
Because they're just like, Massey starring it up or whatever. And they're playing this music that they're influenced by. They had no clue that like in the 90s, you know,
Yeah.
it was the thing.
They're so innocent.
I gotta say, man, I mean, Chicago rave scene, right? And everybody's brother or sister was a DJ or wanted to be a DJ, and these kids play music that I saw at these.
Yeah.
They don't even.
It's like
know,
Jack's
you know,
whole like new millennium fucking thing.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah.
I like it.
Their record is great, I will say. Every
Pump
time
up
it
the
comes
volume,
on.
pump up the volume, just like stuff like that.
They were here one night when I came in at like midnight on like a weekend, about a week ago. Him and Sam were kind of just messing around with these sort of like, VJ decks or whatever, and they were doing some really cool stuff. It was definitely not like stuff I'd heard before. I was really interested in it. They have really good ears.
No, yeah, I really like what they're doing, and some of it's. I like that Men in New York song.
Yeah, that's good.
That's
It's
good.
Serotonin Syndrome. That's one I really like.
But the whole aesthetic, I'm glad that, like I told him, like, you look like some weekdays you look like an extra out of SLC Punk.
Totally. That's
Yeah, it's like it's nice to see a young person being influenced by that kind of stuff and like really, because it's like I talked about this recently as well. It's like I remember being like 16 and going to a show and like thinking it was the coolest. These people are celebrities. Like this local band is like I didn't know they weren't cool. And it's like it didn't matter. And it's like I think about that now. It's like maybe there's someone watching me, so it's like, or watching what y'all are doing, or like you ever think about that? Like you're gonna like you said, it's a time and a place, and you're doing it. It'll come and go, but then you'll influence someone to do the same thing.
I mean, when that happens now, I love it. Like when someone's like, because you don't realize a lot of times when you talk to someone, and then like a year later they come back and they tell you about like, oh, we had this conversation or this thing happened and it led me to do this and it was really meaningful. That shit's awesome, Like
That's
when
what it's
you
all
realize,
about.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that you can kind of make someone feel seen,
Yeah.
in a genuine way, like.
You could change the trajectory of
Yeah.
what there can be.
I mean,
Because I hate to see untapped potential.
Absolutely. I mean, I've seen that so many times with people where, like, I've just been really impressed with what they did, and that's happened more often than
Or just
not.
influence and like your brand or whatever, the thing, your message, living past you or whatever, or
Yeah.
staying here maybe past if you were to leave. It's like we were talking about that earlier, how white dirt, I would like to live beyond me.
Yeah.
or maybe, but also that requires, this is all a project for me, so it requires you to be able to realize that, like, maybe someone who's like does white dirt after me, they might do it in the way I didn't do it, and you gotta kind of like let that happen.
I think that can be hard, but it's also really rewarding when you actually are able to kind of let go, I think, and let people reinvent shit.
100% agree.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. A lot of interesting things happen in this place, and I feel like, definitely someone who went into quarantine with very low hopes for this place. When we first met, when we were meeting, I didn't speak real positively about the Baton Rouge scene and the way that it was. But I wasn't, rightfully so in some ways, right? Like you said yourself. But I think ask me the same questions today, I'd respond differently. Just because I'm way more, it's certain things it's interesting to see in a different light. Like that's why I was like, man, I was inspired by Jack and stuff and what they were doing. It's like, that's great, man. I'm like really happy that the good guys win, kind of thing.
Exactly.
So, we've lost our lights. We've talked a lot. It's been fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Jed.
Hopefully we can do Yes We Cannibal again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely a guest that can be recurring.
Yeah, or you could interview other people here
Now,
too.
one thing I almost forgot, is something I started last week. I didn't know we were having two guests, to be honest with you.
That's okay.
You guys are gonna have to
the
share.
cage match.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do it in the back.
Did someone get hurt last time or no?
We get
What?
hurt all the time.
No, but didn't someone get? What happened like with when you guys did that? You were gonna do the thing in the back of the door. No, but something came up.
Death.
Got it. I forgot.
Yeah.
No, yeah, something came up. No, I don't care. I don't mind. We can talk about
it's okay.
that.
It all came back to me. It took a second to remember.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. So like I stated, I do plenty of wrestling. We'll have more wrestling stuff here. Basically, is the sure.
Who's gonna be the good guy and who's gonna be the bad guy?
I'm the good guy.
Well, you said long-term storytelling.
Yeah, right.
But something I started on the last episode is the guests get a pair of MILF Hunter stunners. So I grant to you your own pair.
Oh my
You guys
God.
have to share the MILF Hunter stoners, but you get the green
You're gonna have
pair.
to cage match me because I
know.
like these.
Yeah.
You get it. Each pair has a colored gleam. These are the greens.
Oh, wow.
These are the green bitches.
Whoa.
So
I feel very cool.
definitely. So wear them, of course, to the casino with your social
When you're hunting
security
milfs.
check. And if you don't know, do you know the legendary James Brown interview where he's like on CNN Live and he's like living in it? He's wearing those.
No way. Yeah,
No.
totally.
Literally wearing the MILF Hunter stunners.
Have you seen? I'll show it to you tonight.
No,
It's
yeah.
amazing.
Oh, we gotta go
He
home
was-
and watch it.
he was the shit.
So the official Yes We Cannibal MILF Hunter stunners. Ah man, I didn't know I was gonna because I did that impromptu with the Jack episode. I didn't know I was gonna do it. I was like, he's like, can I have?
Oh, they are cool.
He was just like, can I have some? I was like, yeah, why not? They're not expensive when you buy them, but now they are gained value.
Oh yeah.
Like I heard a quote from Dave Chappelle where he was in a hotel somewhere, and there was like a picture of Abraham Lincoln made out of pennies, and he was like, how much is that worth? And he's like, oh, about $25,000. And it was like $16 in pennies. So it's like the art gives it more value.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'd like to believe that about the MILF Hunter stunners as well. Those
These are
just went
my
up.
MILF
Yeah.
Hunter
No, I'm
stunners.
not going for it.
Oh yeah, you're literal MILF.
I was gonna say you're a MILF, so. Yeah.
That's right.
It's kind of meta. Yeah.
It's very meta. It's meta AF. Because I guess I got to tell this again. A question was directed to me. I'm a 38-year-old woman, no kids, but I exude MILF energy. Am I still a MILF?
Yeah.
You tell me.
I think so. Right?
Yeah.
Hey, we'll take from Gen Z there, it's just a vibe,
Yeah.
MILF is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
That's what I always say.
It's a state of mind. The MILF is
I have a funny story about the MILF thing, which is that a friend of mine was in couples counseling in Los Angeles. It's been like 10 years ago. And with her boyfriend, and they eventually broke up. But they went in, and there was some issue with, like, this guy had been raised by, like, kind of a very involved mom or something who was really hot, and the psychotherapist literally was like, so she's a MILF? And apparently it was just like this, like you dropped something on the floor. Like, what a horrible thing to have a therapist, say. Like, that's not language you want from someone who's trained to.
But it's like it metamorphosized over time,
I feel like now it'd be less shocking, but.
Yeah, it's developed into a mind, like, thing of its own. It's completely just and I'd like to believe it had something to do with that, but.
Absolutely.
I gotta tell you, when I saw one of my students wearing your shirts.
Really?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Did you talk to them?
No, I was, it was like.
Did you give them an A?
What shirt was it?
It said MILF Hunter on it. I mean, it wasn't a shirt that I'd seen with you, but it said MILF Hunter. Yeah. So.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Who was the kid? I guess you can't say.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Now I gotta go make shirts that say MILF Hunter on it and be like, yeah, that was totally my shirt.
Oh, was it your shirt?
No, I never have made. Should be.
Yeah, it should be. You gotta make
I
some
just
of
get
those
stuff
shirts.
sent to me constantly now. We're in a lull, but like I used to. People would send me stuff. I'm like, that's nice. I've seen like 1,000 times. But
maybe you should do a Bass Pro tie-in, like MILF Hunter.
Well, I was working on
that's good.
MILFware
Yeah.
before. I did like a poll of women and stuff like that. But now we're thinking about
for women. Oh yeah,
merch clothes for women. Yeah.
That's really good.
Well, I mean, I guess for women.
Lululemon.
Like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I could see it.
Could be for whoever, but
I like the idea of the MILF line being for women. Like it's.
Yeah, I was definitely. I've been thinking about it again recently. It's have to.
Yeah.
And you know how like back in the 2000s they'd say like juicy on the ass or something. Just have it,
MILF.
something
Hunted.
like that.
Yeah.
So
Target loaded or whatever.
Yeah. So I mean, here comes the train. It fucked my video up one time when I filmed here. And my edits. But it's okay. It is what it is. It's real. So that being said, this has been episode 6 of the PLAYBAW Podcast.
Thanks, Jed. It was
Thanks,
awesome
Jed.
talking to
Yeah.
you.